So an aspect of Beth and I meeting, I never actually talked about before, but when Beth and I were introduced in a way, and we spoke to each other on that first, we didn't speak, we texted the usual Filipino way, and there was something about what she said, and for her there was something about the way that I spoke that prompted us both to want to meet. And looking at things on a practical level, I wanted someone who would help me with marketing my writing, and Beth had a master's in marketing, so it seemed like it would be a worthwhile union. So we met, and it was the day of the earthquake in Cebu. So that was part of what prompted her to decide that rather than sit at home by herself, she would rather meet me, and she took a taxi across town, that we're in Cebu, and she met me at the hotel that I was staying at, which had an alarm system, which as soon as there was any kind of a tremor, an aftermath to the earthquake that had taken place that day, everybody had to vacate the hotel, and this happened like every 10 minutes. So we spent most of the time talking in the reception, and then stepping outside, and then coming back, and it was a mess. But the next day at 8 o'clock, I was leaving to catch my flight back to Mabalacat, and that's close to Angeles in San Fernando, and something about the way that it had gone, I said to Beth, would you think that it is worth, first of all, like I always say, people must be tired of me saying this, but I always say I looked at her straight off and said she's too young. She looked at me and said that, she said to herself, he's too old. And then as we talked, those reservations lessened, to the point that I said, would you agree to not date or see anybody else until we meet again, which we expected would be in about a month, because all I was doing was selling up a few things and preparing to leave, handing notice in at my little apartment in Mabalacat, and then I would come and I would stay in Cebu, and we would see how it would go. So it was a practical thing for her and for me that we decided that we would hold off any other relationships, and that was easy for me because I was only talking to people via text, and she had whatever challenges she had in order to meet that agreement, and we kept it, and then when I came back, and then that's another story. But initially I was hoping that she would be able to help me to market my books. Now I'd written 3 books which are now on YouTube, sorry, not YouTube, on Amazon. They're on Amazon.com, and so I was very much involved in thinking, creating, writing, as a way of actually being involved. So that led me to get as much information as I possibly could, and of course there are many books, how-to books. This was before YouTube quite got off. It wasn't then, to my knowledge, it wasn't then the mine of information that it is now. Literally now, you can type in anything now and get probably thousands of possible sites that you could go to learn whatever you've indicated you have an interest in. But back then, and before that, I was still buying books. And I bought this book called The First 5 Pages, A Writer's Guide to Staying Out of the Rejection Pile. This is when you actually sent a manuscript in and did it the old way. And it's before you could actually self-publish, which of course is the norm now. And so this is all about avoiding common manuscript errors and attract the attention of agents and editors and so on. See, but in the first page of this book is a rejection letter. A rejection letter from a Chinese publisher for a book by Louis Zukovsky, and the book was called A. The book was called A. Sorry, I'm looking at it and not seeing it quite clearly. So it's Louis Zukovsky, and the book was A, which I'm assuming that I never read that book, and I don't have access to libraries here like I used to, so it never got read. But the rejection letter came from the Chinese publisher, and it's a very special letter. So it says, "Most Honourable Sir, we perused your manuscript with boundless delight, and we hurry to swear by our ancestors we have never read any other that equals its mastery. Were we to publish your work, we could never presume again on our public and name to print books of a standard not up to yours. For we cannot imagine that the next 10,000 years will offer its type. We must therefore refuse. We must refuse your work that shines as it were in the sky, and beg you 1,000 times to pardon our fault, which impairs but our own officers." Signed, the publishers. Don't know what it sounds like, but when you read it, that's a really funny thing. So that was really what we were kind of looking at doing when we got together. It turned out that as time went by, we realized, one of the things that we were planning on doing is we were planning on going abroad together. I had enough money right at that moment that we made these plans, and I'd been looking at going to Panama. So got to remember that I'd come out looking for the next adventure, and that, as it's turned out to be, is a phrase that Beth always uses, is it's part of the adventure. So our adventure then, instead of taking us to Panama, it took us on a saving trip where we thought that we could live cheaply and save money, and we would go and live on the farm of Nanai. And this is the farm that Beth grew up on, right? So we went there and we lived there. It didn't turn out that way, and we had a lot of incredible experiences. I got to do some things which I never would have dreamed that I would be able to do. I designed a bridge, because if you look way back into the very early videos, you'll see that we were riding, after we'd gone through a little bit of a trial time where we didn't have much money because they'd stopped my pension, and until it got reinstated, we were not able to do very much, but we bought a motorcycle once my pension had been reinstated. So we were doing that, and we actually, on the spur of the moment, we were invited to go with Beth's brother, who is a pastor, and he said that he was going to read the Bible to a man who was paralyzed, and we went with him, and the man was living in such pitiful conditions. He was living in a dirt floor bedroom on a sagging bamboo bed, and we didn't go actually into the bedroom. We sat outside and we listened. And I said to Beth, we don't have much money, but surely we could buy this man a new bed. And that became our plan. So tragically, before we could do that, the man died. But his family were left in this pitiful house. So I remember the day that I went to Timio, who was digging a well. And I went and spoke to him, and I said, Beth and I have decided that we will start to go around and repair the houses of the very poor. And and later he described his effect that had on him when we were blessing one of the houses that we'd made much later. And he said that when he heard that, I was asking him to be part of the team that would go around doing the actual carpentry work. And he said that when I left, he cried. So these were very heady days. I got to do things which I never expected to do. I designed a bridge which, on my calculations, I said if it looks like it will take a 5-ton truck, then somebody with a 5-ton truck will damn well drive over it. So we made this bridge, which later became quite well known in our videos. And we built the bridge, and we did the road, and later we built a house for Nanai. And I learned very quickly that anybody that's coming here that thinks they're going to change everything, it's not going to happen. When we built the house for Nanai, she said that she wanted it to be built in a traditional way. So it has a concrete floor and it has 5 courses of hollow block. But then after that, it goes into wooden framework, and then it's covered in what they call a makon, which is a woven, a broader, about this wide, pieces of bamboo, and they're woven together in a special weave which is traditional. And we built quite a big house. It's a big house, and it's made traditionally. I thought this was my chance to be able to bring the influence, or maybe not the influence, but some of the things that I was used to. We could have a nice kitchen and put cabinets in there, and we would make the very big room that we built, which was the common room, the living room, and we would make that with a kitchen, and I was going to build a huge round table that would take the entire family for occasions like birthday parties and Christmas and stuff like that. No sooner was the house built in the shell, then and then I had moved in, then she had strung a laundry, a washing line across the centre of the big room where my grand cabinet, kitchen and breakfast bar and round table quickly got lost. But back then we had an incredible flow of energy and excitement for what we were doing. We built, instead of building a house for the paralyzed man and his family, the paralyzed man's family, instead of doing that, Timio had been counselling this other family where the girl was almost paralyzed. She was able to get around, but she needed a lot of help, and she had a small child, and that was Desiree. And we went, and Desiree had the basic framework of a house, so we went out there. It was a very quick job, and we built onto it and covered it in, doors and 2 rooms, and that was done very quickly. And that was really our first house. Then we went back and we did the house of the paralyzed man, and then the 3 little girls. Well, it was 3 little girls, but then it turned out to be 4 little girls. But that was how we knew it then. So we did that, and we did several houses there, and we dug a well, and all that we did was we did a video, a human interest video, and then we showed it on our site. Now, up to then, we'd just been doing fun things on our site, which we learned later that actually people enjoyed the fun things, like Beth riding a carabao that she called James Bond, and all kinds of things that we found out about each other. Then we went to a place called Sagbayan Peak. I'm gonna meander around, all right. Let the conversation or the talk go where it wants to. The funny things that I found out about Beth, that she is truly an island girl. She absolutely adores being in the water. I've often said laughingly that she is part mermaid, and I'm almost seriously. So we went to a particular place that she took me to, which has a very high altitude, and it's a cliff top that looks out over the country, and it's called Sagbayan Peak. So we went there, and at Sagbayan Peak, one of the part attractions of that is that it has lots of pretty nicely done fiberglass figures, all taken apart from one of Marilyn Monroe, which we took pictures with. She didn't know Marilyn Monroe, and then I quickly found out that Daffy Duck, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, none of these. She knew none of these figures that I'd grown up with, and so we were talking later when we got home, and we were talking about what we had seen on video, and she referred to Disney as Wally Disney, which of course had me collapse with laughter. So there was stuff like that, but there was other things. There were things that we were not equipped to do. A young man came to us, Dennis, and he had a huge swelling on his leg. I think on his right leg. Not sure now. It's a long time ago. And down to the knee, from the groin down to the knee, he had his leg was swollen to 2 or 3 times the normal size. And we took him to see a specialist. That was part of our mission, to help. And we took him to see a specialist, and the specialist said, yes, but it would have to be operated on. There would have to be surgery. Well, when we got home, Dennis said that he didn't feel ready to do that surgery. So we left it. What could we do? We had to leave it. And then he came back a year later. Now, the first time when he refused because he said, well, there's no pain, so it's not hurting me. So I'm not ready to take a drastic surgery. So when he came back, it was even bigger. We took him back to the specialist, and I sat with the specialist. And this is the part that I say we were not really trained or equipped to do this. I actually sat in on the interview that he had, where we looked at the results of the tests that he'd had done. It was indeed cancer. It was indeed malignant, and the doctor then dropped the bombshell. He said, I have to tell you that we can amputate, but it is not a solution. It's not a cure. And what does that mean? I asked him. He said, it means that Dennis has about 14 months to live. And no, I wasn't trained to know what to do, what to say. So we discussed it with the young man, Dennis, and in a fairly short time we'd raised the money for his amputation, which he went through. The amputation was particularly drastic. It went right up into the groin. So there's no, as far as our resources and everything, and even the technology that was available in Bohol at the time, there was no way that he could have a prosthetic limb. So he was incredible. I still respect him so much. He lived beyond the 14 months. He didn't take that. And as far as I know, he's still alive, but we haven't seen him for a long time. So there was that. And there was another where Beth and I were going to see her sister. And her sister was married with a family to a pastor who was also a carpenter and later did quite a bit of work with us. But we went, and on our way there to Ubay, we passed a house that we called the Skeleton House, because it was a traditional frame house that was supposed to be clad in plywood or in a macon, and it needed quite a bit of work to it. But at the first passing, we thought that it was abandoned, and then we saw a laundry out, and we realized that it was not abandoned. And then one day we called in, and I guess the man was a bit jaded. He looked at the foreigner and said, yeah, foreigner, all talk. And we said to the woman, that the mother of 7 children who were living in this house with a few pieces of plywood put up interior so that they had some privacy when they went to sleep. And we said, at that time, we didn't know that we could do anything. And I said to Beth, you must tell them that we can't promise anything, but we'll try. Well, we were able to raise the money to buy the materials, and we took them down. We actually took the materials to the house, and we took them, and there was only the children were there with a babysitter, but the father was gone and the mother was away, out at the store or something, just not there. And we started to unload what we had brought. And while I was taking the stuff off the truck, the mother came and saw what we were doing. And she came over, and unusual for a Filipina, a simple poor Filipina to do with a foreigner, she put her arms around me and thanked me. And later, as I continued to, I wasn't not trained for that either. And as I continued to unload the stuff, she said to Beth, I had given up all hope of ever finishing our house. And they have 7 children. Now I know, please, if you've got a comment on your mouth, on the tip of your tongue saying, yeah, well, she shouldn't have all those kids, should you? Don't bother. We're talking about compassion. And while we're on the subject, the subject of money and what a foreigner does with money is a highly charged, emotionally charged subject. And what I'm saddened to see is so little compassion. You know, where we've managed to achieve quite a lot in the 10 years that we've been saving and working. So the apparency at least is that we're doing pretty good. Well, we're still eating very simple meals, believe me, and we're still living very modestly, regardless of how big the house is or how big our dream is. But we still hope that there will be compassion. Never mind the words of scamming, or it's a cultural thing, or they're ripping you off, or you shouldn't be doing this or shouldn't be doing that. Let's have a little compassion. And while we're doing that, perhaps if you like what you're listening to and watching in all of our videos, of which there are almost 20,000, we've been working for 10 years now, give us a like and hopefully even subscribe to us, because it helps us a lot. It means that YouTube will take notice by the sheer statistics of your likes and comments and interaction, and will promote our efforts to more people across YouTube. So it's a big help for us to do what we do. Thank you for watching.